Hey, it's Shana Meyerson with YOGAthletica in Los Angeles, California, here in my real live living room, in my real live normal clothes and a real live ponytail instead of braids. Why is everything so real and live? Because today I'm going to teach you a real live yoga pose. Now, you're probably thinking that's nothing particularly special. I teach real live yoga poses on YouTube every day. But the reason this one is so special is because beginners are always saying to me, wait, what? That's a real pose? Or I didn't even realize that was a pose. And I'm like, of course it's a pose. It has a name. The name is Ardha Uttanasana. Now, in Sanskrit, Ardha means half, Ut means intense, Tana means stretch. So it's half of an intense stretch. Now, what is Uttanasana? Not Ardha Uttanasana, but Uttanasana is just this, right? Our basic standing forward fold. Now, we see this primarily in sun salutations, right? Which you have in Ashtanga or in a Vinyasa practice. Now, other practices may borrow the sun salutations, but they're actually from Ashtanga. So today we're going to be talking about Ardha Uttanasana, the pose that's a pose that no one thinks is a pose. And how so many people get this one wrong. So let's put this in context. If I'm doing a sun salutation, after my arms go up, I go into Uttanasana, right? Which is my basic forward fold as previously mentioned. And then from there, we come into what's called Ardha Uttanasana, which usually looks something like this. Now, I say something like that because there's a lot of ways to take this pose, and there's a lot of confusion about how this pose goes. I'm going to clear it all up today. So, first of all, let's talk about the concept of spinal flexion and extension. Now, it's a fancy way of saying rounding your spine or back bending your spine, okay? So flexion would be like what you don't want in your life. This is flexion, round, okay? Extension can be standing tall or in something of a back bend. Either one is extension. So when we say extension, spinal extension in yoga, it either means just get long, or it can also mean a back bend, would be a very intense extension. So keep that in mind. Uttanasana is a spinal flexion. And in fact, it's one of the only spinal flexions in all of yoga. So when I go down, I actually allow my spine to round as I fold in. Now, Ardha Uttanasana is the opposite. It's an extension. You see, with me, I'm going to have a little bit of a back bend, but it might also be more flat. It really depends on how flexible your spine is, how much of a back bend is really involved. But keep in mind, Uttanasana, the forward bend, is a round spine, flexion. Ardha Uttanasana, which is a real pose, is extension, which means a flat or back bended spine. Now, this is one of the reasons why people get very, very confused about, is this a real pose? Is this not a real pose? What does it even mean? So a lot of people hear the word Ardha Uttanasana. Let's say that they understand, okay, well, it's got a name, it's a real pose. It must mean half of a forward bend. It makes sense, right? Uttanasana is all the way forward. Seems like Ardha Uttanasana would be halfway, right? Comme ça. Okay? The answer is, it is, but it also isn't. The Ardha part actually is just taking the spine and moving it from flexion into extension. It actually does not mean coming halfway up. So, wherein yes, halfway is Ardha Uttanasana, as long as I maintain an extended spine, going down to my feet is also Ardha Uttanasana. Having my fingertips on the floor is also Ardha Uttanasana, or even having my palms flat. As long as my spine is in extension, those are all Ardha Uttanasana. So when we do Ardha Uttanasana, it's not about coming halfway up. In fact, it's how low can you go while maintaining an extended spine. Now, there are some things that are going to help. Another big mistake that beginners make is they come up halfway, and whether they understand the back is flat or not, they let their arms dangle. Now go ahead and try this. Just stand with your arms dangle and you'll see that the natural tendency, if you don't pay attention, is going to be a round spine. And even if I want to extend, it's very hard to do when my arms are dragging me down. So that's why when we come into Ardha Uttanasana, we want to make sure that the arms are never dangling. They're either pressing into the legs or into the floor. Now, when my hands are on the floor, another mistake people make is they tend to put their hands in front of them. In Ardha Uttanasana, the fingers are in alignment with the toes or even behind them. So the hands would be here instead of here. And if my hands are all the way back and I could get my palms flat, pressing in is what allows me to keep that spinal extension. Okay, so as low as you can go, the hands are on something, whether they're on the floor or on the legs, either one is fine. And if the fingers are on the floor, they're even with the toes or behind them, not in front of them, which is going to be the tendency. Now, a few more things. When people come into Ardha Uttanasana, the tendency is to stick the butt way out behind and get very heavy in the heels. You'll know because your toes will be able to lift right off the floor. Now, when we come to this pose, you actually want to move forward just enough that what's called the four corners of your foot, which would be inside and outside of the ball of the foot, inside and outside of the heel. Notice I'm not talking about toes. I'm talking about like basically the circle of the foot. All four of those points will press. So instead of sticking my butt way back, I'm going to move forward enough that I sort of even out the weight between the front of my foot and the back of my foot, but without like crunching, that's not even a word, without like crunching my toes into the floor. Now, let's talk about the final pose, Ardha Uttanasana, because for reasons I can't really explain, this pose has been very confusing for a lot of students. And I think it's because we don't manipulate our spines that often outside of yoga. So when people are new to yoga, they don't fully understand how to control their spine. So in a beginning class, they're always going to say hands on legs, but I see this a lot. Is this extension or is this flexion? Right. I'm sure you got it right. This is flexion. So how do I get into extension? First of all, I take my shoulders and I roll them back and down, and then I take my tailbone and I lift it up. So it feels like I'm making sort of like a U shape in my upper back, whether I am or not. And also looking forward or up is going to help. Why? Because the neck always follows the line of the spine. I shouldn't say always. There's actually a few exceptions. But in general, the neck follows the line of the spine. Why? Because the technical name of a neck is your cervical spine. Okay? Your neck is actually part of your spine. So whatever your spine does, your neck does. So if my neck is down, it's going to be very hard for me to flatten it out. But if, on the other hand, my neck pulls long, like I'm trying to pull my head forward and look up, it gives me the freedom to pull the shoulders back and down, the tailbone up, and to come into that nice spinal extension. Okay? So again, we start in Uttanasana, which is a round spine, which is my intense stretch, right? And then we come up into Ardha Uttanasana, which, by the way, happens on an inhale because it's an extension. Generally speaking, I keep my fingertips on the floor. It gives me the most leverage, and I pull back like I'm trying to slide the floor back to get the shoulders in the back and down direction. Again, your hands can be anywhere on the legs that facilitates. If you're super tight and you need to be up here, go up here. Go wherever works for your body. But remember that if you can go super low, fingertips are even or behind the toes or the palms if that's available to you. This is a tremendous release for your hamstrings, obviously, but also for your low back. Okay, now you know. Ardha Uttanasana is a real pose, and it's actually quite integral to both Ashtanga and Vinyasa yoga. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you really want to learn everything there is to know about yoga and get my full-length practices, I recommend subscribing to one of my Vimeo channels. The links are in the description below. You know what they say? Namaste.